Finally back to schedule, no need to worry. Among other things, had to deal with a copyright strike. Unfortunate, but taken care of. Anyway, without further digression, thanks for reading. Yeah, by far. Good Lord. Penn said as she scanned the crowd of mingling people. It was a jungle of variants. Hundreds of different forms made all the more different by their differing requirements to be able to attend the space comfortably. She recognized a number of familiar species in meandering Corval and Archons. She even recognized the quadrupedal robotic tanks of green liquid that she'd met two of and boxed the bot they'd built. She would have thought the Ort hard to miss in any normal context, but the majority of the room was so alien it made Deeg and Gareth seem near close to human in general construction. A floating crystal of sorts caught her attention. White and opaque, it seemed to float with the use of some attached metal devices. They were all connected by a web-like pattern of metal lines that crawled across its body in a lattice. Deeg noticed her gaze stop. That would be Dav, his a friend actually. What is he? And he. Dav is well his Dav. His name is his species name because his species is singular, it's just him. Dav is like a hive mind except is all one gigantic consciousness. He's a sodium-based lifeform that evolved intelligence as the massive sodium crystals across his planet grew to exchange electrical charges. Eventually they became quite complex. He doesn't have generations so much as iterations and shards that break off from the whole for a time to travel and interact with others. And as for the he part, he didn't have a concept of sex or gender or anything until first contact was made, but after a time of informational exchange with Archons he decided he liked the term so. Deeg shrugged. Sentient salt? Aye. A bit reductive, but I suppose. Not far off. Though I wouldn't say it to him, his culture is very serious about precise and respectful language. I see. He makes lovely music, by the way. He doesn't use instruments like humans, though, instead he does this resonating thing. You'll have to introduce me and, Penn looked around at all the unfamiliar species around. I hope you don't mind if I use you as a bit of a resource here. I think I might be as out of my element as I could possibly be. Of course, but there's one familiar friend of ours. Gareth. The two made their way over to Gareth, who was entertaining a couple individuals of a species wholly unknown to Penn. Captain, I was just mentioning you to these fine ambassadors from Meisha. Still Federation hopefuls, but, once that's all taken care of, they're eager to set up trade. Gareth noticed the two smooth centers of the ambassadors were staring past him. What's, Penn? You changed your mind? Yeah. Right. Ambassadors, please let me introduce Miss Penelope Astor, our head of security. Penn this rock and Leth Talek. Seeing no hand or gesture of greeting from the two, she simply bowed slightly. A pleasure. Their response came from devices affixed to what Penn could only guess was clothing. It was entirely robotic, and she quickly surmised that whatever natural means of communication they had required no sound. In fact, it seemed to not require any medium she could recognize. The pleasure is ours. Rock spoke first, but Leth finished the sentence. You certainly strike an impressive stature. Now it was the opposite. I've been getting that a lot recently. We're relatively unfamiliar with your people. Are you offering trade terms? What would the nature of your exports be? We have vast stores of resources and raw materials. You would have to ask a Terran ambassador, I couldn't tell you. Gareth spoke up. I do believe there are 2 Terran representatives here. Shouldn't be too hard to spot. He scanned the crowds and found his mark. 2 tall gentlemen stood against a wall. One was dressed somewhat opulently while the other wore an austere uniform quite like Penelope's. The colorful one was doing his best to grab attention and engage in conversation, but the other stood as disconnected from the first as possible and entertained no one. It was still hard for him to tell sometimes, but they both looked like males to Gareth's eye. There they are. Penn cut in quickly. I should mention humans aren't a part of the Federation, and it's not likely they will be anytime soon, so. Yes, that would mean any trade with them wouldn't go through the Federation Trade Council. Deeg shot Penn a surprised look. We see. We appreciate your candor. Oh, lovely. Gareth said to no one in particular. Penn followed his gaze to an approaching figure. It was alien to her, but given Gareth's reaction and what the crew had told her, Penn was venturing a guess as to who she was. She was proven right with Gareth's next few words. Deeg, you can take Penn and our friends here and introduce them to those they would want to know. I'll take my thrashing and join back up with you once she's bored. Ah, yes, all right. Good luck. If only. Deeg waved the two Machian ambassadors along and started away. I know some Artians you should know. I think they might have a lot to offer you. Very well. As Deeg and the ambassadors moved off, Penn didn't follow. It took a moment for Gareth to realize, but he spoke up after a moment. I don't think you'll want to be around for this, Penn. Just an unfortunate conversation I have to have. Who is she? Penn asked, playing up her ignorance. She is, well, she's the reason we're allowed to be here, but not because we're on any kind of good terms. It's complicated. 5 crab-like legs brought the woman up to the two of them. I doubt this little one has much to offer you, Ambassador. Best to talk to a Weyland such as myself. Falca, head of Treyarch Trading, a pleasure. She extended a claw. Penelope Astor, and I think you misunderstand. I'm not a Terran representative. I'm a member of the Nebula crew, security officer. Oh, I see. You work under that Corval, Deeg. And Gareth here, yes. This elicited a reaction from her. It didn't map with human norms, but Penn could recognize she was taken aback. Well, alongside technically. Gareth looked up to Penn. Ah. No. I'm a security officer, your first officer. By chain of command, you outrank me. We. By human standards. I'm human. Penn shrugged. Gareth was throwing her odd looks, and with each interruption Falca increased in consternation. Gareth seemed to give up the fight, as suspicious of Penn's motives as he was. I guess. Miss Astor. Falca cut in intently, a Terran as a security officer on a lone trading ship. How did that happen? What did you do before? Penn clocked the woman's game immediately, trying to fish about for her qualifications. She kept in mind what SM had said about the quality and skill level of those that worked under a Weyland. Military. Are a soldier. Technically. Are more in the background then. I see. Oh, no. Gareth, what would be a Weyland equivalent to special forces? There isn't really. We don't have any kind of elite fighting force that's distinct from the general army. I suppose honor guard to council members would be the closest. Impressive. You've received some honors then. A claw motioned to the medals on Penn's jacket. Some is an understatement. A voice came from behind Penelope. The austere-looking human dressed in similar clothing to Penn stepped forward and gave a nod to Gareth and Falca before giving a salute to Penn. He held it expectantly. Captain Astor. She could see his rank on his lapel. Strictly speaking, she should be the one holding out the salute, but she wasn't going to argue with the opportunity to play herself up a bit. She returned the gesture, and the man waited a beat after she lowered her hand before his own came down. Vice Admiral Atlas Shriya. We've never met, but I've heard the stories. It's an honor, Captain. Truly. Falca was doing her best to play things off. Stories. You know of Miss Penelope. Captain Astor, if you would, many would see Miss as an insult. And yes, you're looking at just about the most famous soldier of her generation. Apologies. No offense was meant, of course. I had no idea I was in the presence of such an accomplished warrior. No offense taken. Penn simply smiled and waited. An awkward moment passed. Well, I should be going, many people to speak to. Of course, I hope we can chat more later. Penn continued to smile. Have a lovely day, Falca. Gareth shot. You as well. Gareth. The Weyland moved away. As soon as she was out of earshot, Gareth looked up to Penn. So, you knew who she was? Absolutely. SM. Spilled the beans. Thanks. Penn shot him a wink.